I still remember the sound that door made when it shut behind me. A soft click, barely audible, but it carried the weight of something I couldn't yet understand. That one sound marked the end of everything I thought I knew, and the beginning of a truth I had spent my whole life running from. When I met Adrian, he was the kind of man who seemed too gentle for the world he lived in. A quiet soul with calm eyes and a smile that looked like it had been through pain but refused to give up on joy. We met at a local art therapy program where I volunteered on weekends. I painted to process the chaos inside me, he sculpted. His hands, steady and confident, brought life out of cold clay. Mine only trembled when I tried to hold a brush for months. We spoke little, mostly about art, coffee, and the rain that seemed to follow us wherever we went. But slowly, his warmth chipped away at my walls. He didn't ask about my past, I didn't ask about his. That silence was our agreement, our safety. Until one morning, as the sun filtered through the dusty windows of the studio, he asked if I wanted to meet his mother. He said it casually, like it was no big deal. She makes the best lemon tea, he smiled. I hesitated, feeling a strange twist in my chest. I had never met a boyfriend's parents before. I wasn't sure if I was ready for that kind of closeness. But his voice was steady, reassuring. She's lonely these days, he said softly, it would mean a lot. So I agreed. The following Sunday was bright and cloudless, a rare gift of light in early spring. I wore a pale blue dress and tied my hair back with trembling hands. The drive to his family home took almost 2 hours, winding through old roads lined with poplar trees. Adrian's mother lived in a quiet countryside house near the edge of a small village. When we arrived, I noticed how the place seemed caught in time: faded curtains, a stone walkway covered in moss, and a swing hanging loosely from a large oak tree. Adrian knocked gently, and a woman opened the door. She was tall, elegant, with streaks of silver in her hair and the kind of face that carried both grace and grief. You must be Leah, she said, her voice soft but distant. She hugged me briefly, then stepped aside to let us in. The air inside the house smelled like old books, lemon, and lavender. We sat in the living room, sunlight spilling across the worn carpet. She asked polite questions: where I grew up, what I did, what I loved about painting. I answered carefully, smiling when I could, hiding what I couldn't. But there was something in the way she looked at me, like she knew something about me that I hadn't said yet. After lunch, Adrian excused himself to fix something in the garden. I offered to help, but he told me to stay, that his mother wanted to show me something. She nodded and smiled faintly. Come with me, dear, she said, leading me down a narrow hallway. The walls were covered with framed photographs, a lifetime of captured memories. I slowed down when I saw one particular frame, a photo of a young girl, maybe 10 years old, with tangled hair and a wide smile. My heart skipped a beat. That smile, it looked familiar. The woman opened a door at the end of the hall and gestured for me to enter. I stepped inside. It was a small study room, filled with sunlight and the faint smell of vanilla candles. On the desk sat a single photograph, framed in silver. My knees almost gave out when I saw it. It was me. A younger version of me, standing in front of a school I hadn't seen in 15 years. I turned to her, my voice trembling. How do you have this? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the window, looking out toward the garden where Adrian was. Then she closed the door behind me, quietly, deliberately. That same soft click echoed again, and suddenly the world inside that room felt smaller, heavier. Leah, she began, her voice breaking slightly. I wasn't sure how to tell you this. I didn't even know if I should. But when Adrian told me your full name, I couldn't believe it. I could feel my pulse in my throat. What are you talking about? She turned toward me, tears glistening in her eyes. You were adopted from the children's home in Pine Hill, weren't you? I froze. How do you know that? She took a deep breath. Because I was the one who placed you there. For a moment, the world stopped moving. My breath caught. My vision blurred. No, I whispered, shaking my head. No, that can't be true. My mother left me there. She didn't leave you, the woman interrupted softly. I did. I am your mother, Leah. The room tilted. My body felt weightless, as if I were falling through years of memories I had buried long ago. I remembered the night I was taken to that home, the confusion, the crying, the promise that someone would come back for me. No one ever did. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding. You can't just say that after all these years. You can't just appear, and her voice trembled. I know. And I don't expect forgiveness. You deserve the truth, at least once in your life. I was young, broken, and scared. Your father was gone, and I couldn't take care of you. I told myself you'd have a better chance somewhere safe. But not a day passed that I didn't think of you. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I wanted to scream, to run, to make her feel the pain of every lonely night I'd spent wondering why I wasn't enough. But instead, I just stood there silent, trembling, a child again. Outside, through the window, I saw Adrian talking to someone at the gate, completely unaware of the earthquake that had just shattered my world. Why now? I whispered. Why tell me now? Her eyes softened with sorrow. Because when my son brought you home, I recognized your face instantly. But I needed to be sure. I prayed for days, asking for a sign. And when you stepped into this house, Leah, it felt like God was giving me one last chance to make things right. For minutes, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the ticking of a clock and the distant hum of birds outside. Then she took a small, worn box from a drawer and placed it on the table. Inside was a bracelet, tiny, pink, and rusted with time. My name was engraved on it. I kept it, she said quietly. All these years. I lifted the bracelet with shaking hands, tears blurring my vision. I remembered it, the last thing my mother had tied around my wrist before the social worker led me away. I had thought I lost it forever when Adrian came back inside. He found us both sitting on the floor, crying quietly. He didn't say a word. He just knelt beside us, his arms wrapping gently around me. He didn't know what had happened yet, but somehow, his silence said everything. That night, after I returned home, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every word, every look, every sound from that visit. I felt anger and grief, but also something else, a flicker of peace I couldn't explain. I realized that for the first time, the question that had haunted me for decades, why wasn't I wanted? Finally had an answer. Days passed before I gathered the courage to visit her again. This time, I went alone. She was in the garden, pruning roses. She looked up when she saw me, her hands trembling slightly. I walked toward her and handed her the bracelet. Keep it, I said softly. I think it was always meant to stay with you. She covered her face and cried, and I hugged her, not because everything was forgiven, but because I understood now that forgiveness isn't about erasing pain. It's about freeing yourself from it. Months later, I began painting again, really painting, not just hiding behind colors. My new series was called The Door That Closed Behind Me. Each canvas captured a moment of that day, the hall, the light, the photograph, the woman's trembling hands. It wasn't a story of abandonment anymore, it was a story of reunion, redemption, and grace. And Adrian, he never once tried to explain or justify what his mother had done. He just stood beside me quietly, helping me rebuild piece by piece, the way he used to shape clay into something new. Sometimes, life doesn't give you closure in the way you imagine. It gives you people who help you hold the broken parts gently until you're strong enough to stand again.